Supporting all 32 counties, Alliance.
Hello and welcome along to Alliance Leagues Reloaded. Plenty to discuss in studio tonight. Once again, we'll do so in the company of Kieran Donaghy, Seamus Hickey and Eamon Donoghue. As always, we'll want to hear from you at home, and you can do so by getting in touch with all the social media channels by following the hashtag Alliance Leagues Reloaded. Now here's a look at what's coming up on the show tonight. Wednesday nights wouldn't really be the same now without hanging out with all you guys, I think, to be honest. Seamus, there's plenty of action over the weekend. Okay, so what was your highlight?
My highlight, I suppose, was in Nolan Park. We had two very tight games, one in Park Erin and one down below in Wexford. So yeah, no, it was a bit of a statement game for Limerick down in Nolan Park. First time there after winning there since 1997. So yeah, really positive signs for Limerick hurling and a good display by John Kiley's men.
And I suppose there was no football action, Kieran, but there was plenty of club action from the point of view. So, like, was it hard for you now to support Dr. Crokes being one of your rivals, or for you was it all about supporting whoever is from your county that's out?
Supporting, yeah, it wouldn't even be supporting who my county is. Like, you know, there were two great games. A lot of the Crokes guys, Kieran O'Leary, Johnny Buckley, Colm Cooper, obviously Owen Brosnan. You know, I've been in the trenches with them over the last 14 years, so I couldn't sit there and not want to see them doing well. So, you know, for me, I was very impressed by Dr. Crokes the weekend. Their movement, their forward, their decision making. They went down to 14 men, you wouldn't even know it. You know, on the other side, Corofin just look like they're all about the business. They want to get back to Patrick's Day again. And I think, you know, Crokes beat them 2 years ago in a semi-final. I think they've secretly kind of wanted this game, and, you know, Johnny Buckley, if he is missing for the final, would be a huge loss. I hope that doesn't happen. To any player to miss a club final would be an awful shame, especially a guy like Johnny who doesn't have a bad bone in his body. Yeah. If it was maybe the likes of myself now, you could kind of get over it. But
not at all.
Yeah, no, but like it's look, it's going to be a great final. But yeah, I'm delighted to see Crokes there and looking forward to the game on Patrick's Day.
And Eamon, like, there was a lot of compliments given. There were two great stories, two great semi-finals, and rightly so. But there also was some social media as well, and there was a lot of exchange and that too. Is it part and parcel of it?
Social media always tends to blow this stuff out of proportion a bit. Everyone gets an opinion on social media. But yeah, I wouldn't get away. I think the real story was on the pitch. You drew two underdogs, but you have two, you know, I suppose super clubs now in Crokes and Corofin. And the beautiful thing about those two clubs is they're such great ambassadors for the way the game should be played. The quality of kick passing between the two matches, which was such a joy to watch. And I think with club football as well, and the players are so used to playing together, that skill level is sometimes even, in terms of continuity, is even higher maybe than in county. And then the two stories with Mullinachta and Gweedore that we've gone through, it's kind of a bit sad to kind of be at the end of it now. Yeah,
it's true, but I suppose that there is still a great story left on Paddy's Day. Let's talk a little bit now about the club, because, you know, it's the lifeline of the GAA. It's the heartbeat in every rural community in Ireland. Why does it mean so much to people, Seamus?
Well, like, your earliest childhood memories are normally, you know, either primary school or underage GA. Well, for me anyway. So, like, some of your earliest childhood memories are attached to colours, attached to where you're from, and a lot of time, you know, the friends that you surround yourself with are from your locality. So, you know, even for me, I went to school in Clare and kind of went away from my club, but it probably made it more important to me as my career went on to play for my club, to associate myself with where I was from, and I enjoyed it. I probably enjoy my hurling more now, the fact that it's my only outlet, but it's great. It's great to represent where you're from.
Yeah, I suppose, like Kieran, what Seamus said, you start and finish with your club.
Yeah, I think and everything in between is shared with people in the club. You know, your success and the hardship that comes along with it is, you know, we were lucky. We went on a journey in 2014 that was very special for me and our guys who had been, as you said, knocking at the Crokes door for a while and couldn't get past them. And eventually in 2014 we went on to win the county championship and win a Munster championship. medal that, to be honest, I was afraid that I would never get, and I would have seen that as a massive strike against my career, because, you know, it's fine to do it with the county when you've got all the great players around you, but for me, you know, it was essential that I managed to get that county championship medal, and as you said, to do it with your friends. And
it's really different. Like it's
and you even see with the Guidor lads, they're like, they had a tough day last week. They had a very hard day a number of weeks ago in the parish, and they've shared an unbelievable journey. But you know, they were hand in hand in a bar on Monday night, and I'm sure, you know, the story and the experience that they've shared over the last number of months is something that they'll be very lucky to ever get again, and they'll be talking about it. They'll be sitting at bar counters in 30 or 40 years, and they'll be saying, geez, that Ulster club win was brilliant, and they'll be talking about obviously the loss as well, but that whole journey is a magnificent story for them, and they did their parish really proud the last day.
And it really brings communities together. You know, you can see it, and even people outside the GA, they say, you know, there's something really special when a club, particularly an underdog, Eamon, gets into such a big game. Yeah,
I think especially when your club goes on that full journey, and you're in the county final in October, and it's getting dark, and you've kind of started on the winter pitches and you're back in the winter pitches. You know, it is such a journey. So yeah, my own club have been lucky enough in 2016 we were in a county final, and it's great when you get to those latter stages. I think we're a bit remiss when we're talking about the club to kind of not talk about the frustrations at the other side of when you don't get to the latter stages, which is the majority of clubs across the country, and kind of the fixture mess that we have, and as I said, the frustration for club players of having an indefinite season, an indefinite start, an indefinite finish. Well, obviously every season has an indefinite finish, but an indefinite start, we don't know when their fixtures are, don't know when league games are. Things can be just, you know, it's, if you're trying to organise a wedding, work, any of these things, it's just very difficult. And I suppose the solution the GA came up with last year in terms of the club months has been a complete. They didn't want to judge it after 1 year, but from what I'm seeing of going into the second year, it's been a complete disaster. So yeah, I think we were remiss to talk about the club without talking about the serious problems that it's facing.
What about you guys? Because now, I mean, that's what it is. The intercounty's gone, so it is all about focusing around the club. Yeah. Is there the frustration? Have you newfound respect now for your teammates that have been soldiering for years?
I always used parachuting for games for years, so I always had massive respect for those guys anyway, because they were putting in, like, even in the facilities weren't the best. One spotlight in the corner of a dark field for most of January and February. So, you know, I suppose what I see now is, and especially in Limerick, every county has been told to make up their own policy when it comes to club games, and you'll have actually a different championship format in nearly every county at this stage. Limerick's Hurling Championship has changed structure nearly in the last 10 years. I know it has changed at least 6 or 7 times. So, you know, you've got all this change. Like Damon said, it's very, very difficult to actually plan anything around it. I don't think it's fair, and especially we split it up the championship between the April club month, as it's called, you know, by name only, I would say, and then you'll finish the championship when your county team is knocked out. The uncertainty, I don't think it doesn't respect club players. Club players deserve more, and you know, I think the GA has to step up and actually really, you know, define what the season should be.
Yeah, and it's like players are putting so much in. Like, club players are training as hard as county players now, so they're putting so much into it. Yet, as we said, they can't organise anything. They can't organise a holiday to get a little break from it. They can't organise, as you said, a wedding. Can we go? Can we not go? And they're putting, you know, the stress of life, of work, of playing at a very high level at club. And, you know, you like to be able to not be getting stressed from other angles, you know, someone saying, can we,
you need certainty, you need clarity.
Yeah, it'd be great for someone to say, look, we've got a stag party here, can you go? And you're kind of going, well, yeah, I can't. or your wife coming to you saying, we've a wedding in June, can you go? And I'm like, well, we could have county, we could have a county. It's like, it's just too messy, and it's stress that people shouldn't be dealing with, that are training that hard to represent their clubs.
That's the thing, if you have a commitment, no matter how big it is, you can say, yes, I'll commit to it, or no, I won't commit. But when you have an indefinite commitment, you say, I don't know if I can commit to it, and that's it's totally unfair.
I think we will see change. I think pressure is coming from an awful lot of different corners of the GA now at this stage, from the Gaelic Club Association, the Club Players Association.
I think Club Players is a great move.
The pressure has to come, because otherwise, without that groundswell of opinion or support for change, it doesn't come about. And it has to make its way through the mechanics of the GA. But I believe it is going to come. I think there's committees and there's focus groups actually tasked with looking at that. But I think it has to change.
Well, before we finish up in the club chat, I think it's important for you to disclose, maybe to everybody at home, what's that one standout memory that you have? You know, for myself, the very first time we won the Club All-Ireland, it was coming back into the village and every single person was there. You know, I said there was nobody in their homes. What's your memory? Say one single memory, your greatest memory of your club. Could be anything.
Greatest. The most indelible one was...
Don't be like Tommy Walsh, don't say someone under 12 games.
some under 10 blitz in Galway, like Tommy Walsh. But my first senior game for my club, I played at 18 years of age, and I went on to mark Brian Geary. He was playing from one lean, and I got the mother and father of all beatings from Brian Geary. And after the game, he came up and shook my hand. Great stuff, well done. I was like, go away with your well done. You nearly just beat me off the field. But it was brilliant because it gave me. I was aspiring to that my whole life, and then to actually come up against the giant of the game in my eyes, and to first-hand witness what the club game was about. I thought it was brilliant. It was really good.
For yourself?
I would say, I spoke about it obviously winning that county final in 2014, and the final whistle going and kind of falling onto the ground, just played a good bit of the game in midfield, was wrecked and emotionally wrecked, and thought we'd never get there, and got there, and Daniel Bohan and William Kirby and a few of the guys that I'd soldiered with for a long time just coming in and grabbing onto them and kind of going, just that relief, that sheer relief that we've done it. You know, when a crowd is, we didn't do it for 20 years, and we had the most county championships in Kerry, so to not do it for 20 years was a long, long time. So it was great to get that monkey off our backs.
Yeah. I suppose we won a fail All Ireland in 2005. Not going back as far as Tommy there, but for me, I'd lived in England up until 6 months before that. So for me, it was just a huge eye opener to what it meant. Coming back in and the bonfires, and you know, it's just, you know, you really understand what a parish is. And as I said, for me, I hadn't experienced any of this or even seen it, so that was huge, and it's really stuck with me. Yeah, so.
Yeah, they're the greatest memories of all. Well, coming up next, we're going to preview round 4 of the Alliance Hurling Leagues, so do stay with us.
My worst GAA memory was seeing my clubmate Eamon O'Shea narrowly lose an All-Ireland final replay when he was Tipperary manager just a few years ago. That was very, very hard, especially when you had to interview him afterwards.
The Leinster final against Kildare, 2001. I think it was 2001 or 2000. And it was, Kildare got we were 6 points up at half-time in the Leinster final, and Kildare got 2 goals in a minute, and we just couldn't recover. And I think that's still eats away at me there as well, and I don't think I'll get over that. And thanks for asking me, because that's just parked away at the back of my brains there.
Worst GAA memory was probably when I was in third class in school. I got my appendix out. I missed 3 weeks of the class leagues, and definitely the worst 3 weeks of my life. Hey, that was a leap year. I always forget about that year.
I need to use that as well. It was a leap year. I forgot about all the All-Irelands.
2010 was not a leap year.
Yeah.
We'll tell Tommy later.
Tommy have that leap year.
Tommy later.
What would be your worst memory, Seamus?
That's a stinker of a question. After my most indelible club memory there a while ago. Yeah, 2008, we were coming off the back of an All-Ireland final appearance. We lost to Offaly in the qualifiers in Gaelic grounds. Oh man, that was a low one. To a smattering of boos. So that was as low as you can really go. Well, 2 years later we went on strike in Limerick as well. So actually, yeah, I know we've had a few. We've had a few bad ones.
We won't get into them too much now. We'll have to get the Kleenex out. Well, there was a full slate of hurling fixtures over the weekend. Here is a reminder of the results in 1A and 1B. Cork got their first win of the campaign in Páirc Uí Rinn on Saturday, and on Sunday, Wexford recorded a 1-point victory over Tipperary, while Limerick maintained their 100% record against Kilkenny, a first win in Nolan Park in 22 years. In 1B, wins for Laois, Waterford and Galway, there was to be no happy return out west for Maddie Kenny's Dublin. And that means Limerick remain on top in Division 1A, while Wexford sit in second place on 4 points, while the rest are all tied on 2 points. It's all to play for this weekend. Over 1B, Waterford have an incredible 57-point difference after just 3 games. And with the change in structure for 2020, relegation is the one to watch. Carlow and Offaly currently occupy the bottom 2 spots. Another massive weekend on the cards. All games are taking place on Sunday. Tipperary host Kilkenny in a repeat of last year's league final. Clare will welcome Wexford to Cusack Park, and Limerick will put their 100% record to the test against Cork. And in 1B, Offaly meet Galway, Carlow entertain Laois, and the big one is in Parnell Park, where Dublin and Waterford will do battle at 2 p.m. Guys, there's plenty to look forward to in store, so we're just going to get straight into it now to make sure we have enough time. Let's talk now about Limerick and Cork first. Limerick, Seamus, are unbeaten. They're doing so well. They've shown they have the strongest defence and they're the highest scoring team. And like you said, your highlight was winning in Nolan Park. Will that give them confidence now to drive forward?
Yeah, I suppose Limerick are stacking, I suppose, what would be extraordinary things in years past on top of each other. And they're actually taking it in stride, I would say. For me, their performance-wise was fairly consistent with what we saw against Tipperary. Kilkenny, I thought, despite being on top for parts of it in the first half, didn't really kind of push on. When Limerick hit the 2 quick-fire goals before half-time, it killed it. So going into this weekend against Cork, Limerick will probably be looking, again, without any fuss, without any fanfare, just to actually, again, change things up, put a few new guys in there, change the formula a small bit, and expect a consistent performance. Cork will travel to the Gaelic grounds knowing that, I suppose, they have a significant task in their hands, but buoyed by a bit of success in Páirc Uí Rinn kind of puts the negativity at bay for a while. So I think they're coming to the Gaelic grounds in a good place based on that. But the Limerick's performance against Kilkenny is I suppose a statement for the rest of the 1A to be looking at.
Well, let's do Cork for a second. I mean, a lot of people said that they felt that it was Clare's indiscipline was rather the reason why Cork won, but you were actually struck by a lot of positives for Cork too.
Yeah, so we spoke about Cork against Wexford down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and we were saying that there was a couple of things that were concerning about that Cork performance. A real lack of composure on the ball, poor delivery from their backs. I saw below Páirc Uí Rinn on Saturday night. While it wasn't always a seamless Cork performance, you saw some really positive stuff from Cork. So here we have Sean Donoghue back in corner back, real composure, taking his time. Stephen McDonnell plays it out of line. And look where Daniel Carney is, back the field. That's when Cork are most dangerous, when Dan Carney is back supporting his half back line. And this distribution, this doesn't happen without the gap between the half forward line and the full forward line that Cork crave. They need that space for Horgan and Nahan and for Harnedy when he's in full forward to thrive on. And the other end is the work rate. Bill Cooper back from midfield, really putting in the hard yards there to get a block in. So this is crucial stuff. And then when you actually saw it, then they worked the ball out the field for a scoring opportunity down the other end. I was very impressed with Tim O'Mahony. Despite the fact that Tony Kelly had 6 points from play, Tim O'Mahony was very positive in everything he did. And only for a last gasp diving tackle there or save, that's a Cork goal. When they attacked direct and when they switched the point of attack, I thought Cork were dangerous. And I thought they did much better than they have in the 2 games previous against Kilkenny and Wexford.
Well, Eamon, have you seen enough now from Cork to suggest they can beat Limerick?
Yeah, even the clips that Seamus showed there, Tim O'Mahony at centre back, he sat a lot. And their whole team in that game seemed to sit back a lot. And if you look at Limerick, they completely tore Kilkenny apart in that second half by carrying ball and running into them. So if you kind of look at the way those 2 second halves ran, you would say that they have a bit of a chance. But Limerick have so many different ways of playing the game that you would imagine they can find a way around that. And they're not going to concede 15 points from frees. So how do you think Limerick are going to try and work their way around that? Yeah,
so what Cork did against Clare worked to a large degree, and you could actually see some of the swarm tackling in the back to stop goal chances, and they didn't really give up too many goal chances. But because of Tim O'Mahony sitting back as deep as he did, Tony Kelly was a nightmare to handle. And when you're sitting back that far, you're vulnerable to midfield and that half forward lines picking points from distance. Limerick are capable of doing that. I still think that you can't afford to sit that deep with Limerick's half forwards the way they are. I don't think Cork will be able to get away with that because when they sell out to stop the goals, they'll concede too many points. And I think Limerick's discipline is far better than Clare, despite it being a point of emphasis for Clare's management team. So I'd say they'd be disappointed with that. Absolutely.
Well, I went to school in Cherryville, so we always had Limerick and Cork people. So that's always a game that I've loved looking forward to, and this weekend will be no doubt it'll be the same. So move on now to Tipperary and Kilkenny. Both of them are coming off 2 losses. I mean, who needs to win this game more?
Yeah, it's a hard one. They both need to win. None of them want to be having 3 defeats in a row. For me, Tip are at home. Tip have less players to come back. So, and as well as that, I think Tipperary's performances, they were unlucky. They lost a man and they actually led for most of the game against Wexford. But Kilkenny, even though they were completely outpowered against Limerick, they did show a lot of fight. They played with a lot of tenacity. They started the game quite well. And the amount of players they were missing, I don't think they'll be as dispirited at the moment. So for me, it's Tipperary who I think need a bit more, but they both, you know, need to get something out of this.
I don't discount the league final last year and the impact on the Tipperary psyche last year. Tip don't like losing to Kilkenny anyway. And Tip Kilkenny games, I always look forward to them because they actually bring an element of competition and a bit of intensity that you don't normally see in the rest of the year. So I wouldn't discount the element of last year's league final leading into that game.
Absolutely. And let's look at both sides. For either team, is there any cause for concern that you might have with either Tip?
I suppose with Kilkenny at the weekend, you know, their lack of punch going forward was surprising. Especially, like, you know, they have some really nice forwards inside there with Leahy and, you know, Blanchfield, who I suppose came on very early. But Walter Walsh started centre forward. I expected him to get more, I suppose, more physical, a bit more direct. And it seemed like Limerick were able to handle that quite easily, quite comfortably. Then the far end, where I would have considered Kilkenny quite robust and strong in defence, you know, there was 2 extra Limerick goal chances on top of the ones they converted. So, you know, Barry Murphy hit the post and Shane Dowling had a batted effort from 5 yards that you'd expect to go into the net 10 times out of 10. Yeah. So I was surprised that they actually opened up as much, especially in the second half.
And there's a lot of talk as well about the return of Eamon O'Shea. What's your take?
Yeah, well, I think Seamus, it's worth looking. I don't see too much change so far on Tipperary compared to last year in terms of new faces, and, you know, the team almost seems to be almost morphing into what it was before. So I don't know if this is a step in the right direction.
I see it as a huge positive as a player, because Eamon O'Shea to me is a player's man. I think he connected really, really well with the players, and actually Damien Lawler said in the VT there, you know, it was one of his worst memories, Tipperary losing that All-Ireland with Eamon O'Shea as manager, because everybody wanted it so badly, almost for him. He's given a huge amount of service to Tipperary, and those players were very sad to see him go. I think himself and Sheedy are a great team, and I think it'll actually be a positive. It'll be a real bounce for Tipperary, I think, as the year goes on. If
they can mix that with a little bit of change still at the same time, they still need to introduce. I'm sure there are a lot of players in Tipperary the last few years who've been standing out in club hurling. You know, where are they at the same time? They seem to still be trying to pick a team for paper, which they were doing last year, and, you know, I'd like to see a bit of a mix-up. Yeah, it's probably a fair point. And is some of the selections that Tip have made throughout the league so far, they've been loyal to a couple of players but I still think they've unearthed a few. Morris is a good find, and he's really made an impact. Burn midfield. I think they have unearthed a few good players, and that's really all that Tipperary team needs, is to find 3-4 guys that can actually add depth or like that start and add an element of, I suppose, an element of unknown for the Munster Championship. Yeah. So with that said, in a word, I said in a word now, give me a prediction. Who's it going to be? I think it's Tipperary. Tipperary. Yeah, Tipperary. Tipperary, okay. Well, time will tell, guys. So let's move on to the next day. We've got Clare and Wexford, okay? So this is going to be one of those games where, you know, there's going to be a lot of interest in Wexford doing really well and Clare lying bottom of the table. So you're going to do a little bit more analysis first. You're going to give me a little bit of break and you're going to make your way up. We're going to head up here to the touch screen. I suppose a game that Cork won, but that Clare dominated. And one of the main reasons for that, Seamus, was because of their puckouts. A strange game, because Clare seemed on top in so many areas down in Páirc Uí Rinn, and I would say their indiscipline was a large part of their undoing. A lot of their success was based off of their dead ball platform that was given to them by this man here inside goals. So Keith Hogan, I thought, actually a fine game. Pity, bad mistake now for Seamus Harnagy's goal. Yeah. Unfortunately, between lights and I suppose pressure in the square, these things can happen. But what I did see from him, and I suppose what I see Clare's whole puck-out strategy being predicated on, is creating space. They create a huge amount of space in these areas here down the field. They want space wide in the channels. They want to open that up as much as they can. They keep it quite narrow in the forwards. And what they're looking for is a run to come from the inside out. And it could be either side. It doesn't really matter, because it gives the keeper options. And what Clare force you to do is make choices. If you make a choice to shut down one side of the field over the other, the keeper has an opportunity and a decision to go to the other side. He can pick someone out. So you can see it here. Keith Hogan plays it, a big long ball into space. You can see Tony Kelly is the one out attacking this. Ian Galvin comes out from deep, making the gamble that he's going to get that ball. Bit of interplay with Tony, and it's straight over the bar. That's a direct score from a puck out. Clare actually had a couple of those. So, you know, when Clare set up like that, it's quite difficult to, especially for Tim O'Mahony. Tim O'Mahony doesn't want to be following Tony Kelly out that far. So it creates dilemmas. Yeah. We're going to have a look at a short puck out. 1 in 3 of players' puck outs were short?
Yeah, you're going to see that because they're focused a lot on possession, so they're going to keep it short and they're going to try and go for the high percentage ball. Here, what you have is a wide from Cork, and a straight away Tony Kelly is after leaving the centre forward position and coming roving, looking for an easy out for Hogan, and Hogan's going to find him. Now, well, again, what I was talking about, Tim O'Mahony does not want to be away from his centre-back position, opening up the middle. What he's looking for in that scenario, he's looking for his midfielders here, and he's looking for his half-forwards here to identify, to see that danger that Tony is out here in an acre of space. He needs them to get out there and for them to rejig on the fly. That needs trust, that needs communication, that needs an awful lot of, I suppose, preparation. Tim Mahoney obviously is new enough in there at number 6. I think that'll grow as the year goes on, but it just gives you an idea of the threat that Tony Kelly actually poses in that position. Ball straight out to him, hit 6 points from play. A lot of that came straight from that puck out platform. So
how do they close this space down, Cork?
So when I'm talking about the space that Clare like to create further down the field, when I'm talking about I suppose, remember we referred to the space back here as being areas they like to create. But you can see here, with the likes of, Cork have their half-hours cutting out channels, they have their midfielders cutting out the deep ball, and they've got, again, the half-hour on the far side going back into that space where they're trying to eliminate that option for Hogan down the field. Now, what that does is, and you can actually see even more so when I highlight him again, Seamus Harnedy, he's 15 yards off of the centre back here because he's trying to close space. What that does for Hogan is, you know what, I'm going to hit Conor Cleary here. And when Conor Cleary gets that ball, everything is on. Yeah. For the attacking team and for the team taking the puck outs, getting your puck out to your half-back line, your launch pad, is a win every time. Everything's on here now. Everything you're talking about, deep into the corner to Podge, in full forward to John Conlon, or even just then, look, we've got a run off him, maybe Tony Kelly up centre forward. Everything is on there, options galore. So that's the kind of thing that Clare try to create, because you choose option A, they'll take option B, and Conor Cleary's up the field and he's gone. Yeah. So. And again, so you can't do it every time. And again, so they sold out there to close that space and opened up an underneath route. Here, Hogan's going to let this develop. He's going to let it develop here. So you can actually see this. The game moves on. Nothing's obvious on at the moment, so he lets it move on. But what you see here is when he lets that develop, you see, look at this and the number of players in that central kind of channel there, or that column, we'll say, down the sixth channel.
It's a bit like a football cluster.
Isn't it? Yeah, so they condense it in narrow. But in hurling, because of the length of the strike from the goalkeeper, you've got depth options that you just don't have in football. And Hogan sees a run from deep. Ian Galvin is going to run out to the wide channel. And here we can stop that here. Look, Luke Meade, you can actually see him right here. Luke Meade is a midfielder who tried to cover back to cut that out, but that depth has him beaten. And Galvin's onto the ball, picks it up, and a very easy pick up without any pressure at all, plays it back into the middle for a scoring opportunity. That is difficult to defend, and you can actually see there, O'Connor, the Clare management team have been instilling this in Clare since they won All Ireland under 21. This is a staple of their game, and it's a modern puck-out strategy.
Clare have retained 20 out of 28 in that game. Wexford, I suppose, will sit down here, but Wexford are going to have a man back. Yeah, but might change that up a little bit.
They're probably as well set up to stop that as any team is. But it's very, very difficult when there's multiple options on the menu for your goalkeeper, and you're only taking away one. He'll pick another. And when one of those options is Tony Kelly, and his movement creates problems because you drag in players out of position, it creates even further problems. But Wexford have been very compact, and looking at the league table, I wouldn't sleep on the fact that they're second with 4 points on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And just turning our attention to Wexford for a second, I mean, it was Davies' first win against Tipperary as Wexford manager, and I'm sure that'll inject a lot of confidence into them. But I suppose what's impressed a lot of people is their plethora of scores. They're averaging 9 different scores every game, something that they've been guilty about over previous years, that they've been over-reliant on one or two players.
Yeah, Conor McDonald didn't score in the last game. A good spread. For this game, I suppose, if we're following the trend of the last 2 games, Ian Byrne's going to be very important. He's free taken. He's very good against in the last game against Tipperary, and he's going to need to take all of the chances again. But yeah, definitely a good spread. And even in terms of how they've used the sweeper, I think has been a lot lot more effective than last year, and we went through that against Wexford or against Cork.
Yeah, no. So I think what, especially with the diversity of scores that they have, it gives them, I suppose that adaptability to the opponent that they're going to play. Diarmuid O'Keefe had 3 super points from midfield at the weekend. And he's a class player with loads of experience. So, that option for them, they didn't have to rely on their inside forwards, who are actually playing well enough, I would have said, in the earlier rounds of the league anyway. And it gives them that depth, I suppose, that scoring option from out the field, which allows them to play a couple of different ways. And then using that man at the back means that they're very, I suppose, stout defensively. They're not going to concede goals, even though Seamus Callan got one from the first play of the game. But that's Seamus being Seamus, creating something out of nothing. But I would say they're still quite defensive and well set up.
Well, let's move ahead now, because we have to look as well at Dublin and Waterford. Waterford have beaten Laois, Carlow, Offaly. And again, I suppose people were saying under Derek sometimes they played quite defensive, but they really are showing that they have a very attacking nature, the highest scorers across Division 1A and 1B. Do you see that continuing now against the likes of Dublin, some of their more, I suppose, tougher opponents?
I do. I actually think what Waterford are doing is going to be hard to stop. Bennett is absolutely out fire. Stephen Bennett, he's been phenomenal. Fair enough, he's got a fairly high free count under his belt, but he's scoring from play. This Waterford team is aggressive in attack, and they have all the options, they have all the tools, and that's with the Ballygunner guys yet to come into that mix. So I think Dublin are going to find it hard to stop. It's Waterford's first real test, I would say, against like that now a Dublin or a Galway. But Dublin found out what the going is like against Galway last week in Salt Hill. So it'll be interesting to see how Dublin react to that loss against Galway, and again I suppose how Waterford are stepping up against the quality of opponent.
Well, certainly another one to keep our eye on. Time now for another break. When we return, we're going to welcome back Kieran Donaghy and look ahead to round 4 of the Alliance Football Leagues. See you in a few. Yes, a big weekend ahead on Air Sport. Here's how Division 1 table looks now going into round 4. Mayo and Kerry are joint top on 6 points. Galway are in 3rd, with Dublin down in 5th place. Tyrone and Cavan are yet to secure a win in the league. The table could look very different, however, on Sunday evening. 2 games on Saturday, and they're both exclusively live on Air Sport. Jim Gavin and James Horan renewed their rivalry under the lights in Croke Park, while Tyrone will be looking to secure that elusive first win of the campaign at home to Monaghan. On Sunday, Galway host Kerry, a second play third, and Roscommon travelling to Breffni to meet Cavan. So, of course, what better way to kick off than to talk about Dublin and Mayo? And the lads are up the screen to do some analysis.
Yeah, so we're going to have a look at what I think has been Mayo's Achilles heel in their fixtures against Dublin in the Jim Gavin era. So in the 13 matches, we've had 23 goals conceded with Mayo full backline against Dublin, 116 average concession. Even last year, average concession was 114 for Mayo. Something James Horan has really sorted out this year. And against Cavan, he brought back, we've seen lots of new faces, but he brought back Ger Cafferty fullback. Is he the best fit?
I think he is. I think Ger has been very solid for Mayo over the last number of years. And you just see what you want in a fullback is, first of all, is you want tightness. And that's a key for a fullback. But secondly, you need aggression. And I think what Mayo did, and you can see the players streaming back to help here. They're all on the back foot. They're all getting back just to get the support. A fullback has great comfort knowing that if he slips, that there's help coming. There's no more vulnerable place for a fullback to know that there's no help coming. But what you want him to be here is you want him to be aggressive. You want him to be tight. Get a hand in, which is brilliant. He comes here, then dives in with the foot, clears the ball. Like that's excellent fullback play from Ger, and you know that's what they need going forward this year.
We'll let this run, and Ger's actually not involved in this play, but a long ball in on top, and I suppose what we're going to see here is one of the big facets of it is the number of Mayo players who get in around the ball. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've got men coming in for the breaks. These are all coming in around. It's just power and numbers.
Power numbers, and again, there's, you know, for high ball in, it always causes a sense of panic in any team. And you know, when you start getting them breaks, there's a great sense of calm comes over you when they start coming in.
So what we're looking here is, I suppose, what is the main reason why Mayo have conceded the least amount in Division 1, the 3rd least amount of any of the 4 divisions. We've got Keith Higgins here, and his man is out here, but he knows that there's no danger there.
Yeah, he's doing the right thing, and this is something that Mayo have done really well in getting bodies back. And if you look at where Keith is here, you know, like this D is the most dangerous space in GA. It's where predominantly the amount of scores come from. You have him here. Ger's tight as anything back there again. You know, the ball's coming back out here to a Cavan player getting ready to deliver. Right now here, once Ger takes away this run, you know, and forces him this way, they're in a good position here, Mayo, and I think this is crucial. And again, Ger doesn't feel vulnerable back there. He doesn't feel like he's one-on-one. If Keith doesn't make that extra 15-yard burst to help, all of a sudden this is a dangerous ball. And I think this is where, you know, obviously James Horan has worked on this. Get back off your man, especially from the weak side, to help out. And
we've also seen the wing forward make his way back to track what was Keith Higgins' man originally.
Yeah.
So we'll let this play, and we'll see that Ger, as he did throughout the whole game, he comes in and he gets a hand in.
Yeah, and you see him here, he's on one knee, he's diving in, he's getting a hand. He's only able to do that because he knows Keith Higgins is close. If he can't see Keith Higgins there, again, he's probably having to stand up. The Mayo forward probably wins this and looks to get a score off. So absolutely brilliant again from Ger just to get that hand in and knock it away.
This time we've got, let it run here for a second, we've got a different man in. We've got Mr. Plunkett. Michael Plunkett did a fantastic game again. And the main reason for that is because here, as we can see, Keith was back corner back. So I suppose the main lesson in here is that Mayo don't have, as maybe we've seen in a couple of years ago in the Connacht Championship when they got a lot of criticism, they had Kevin McLaughlin standing in as a sweeper against Galway and he was just standing there. Mayo have a system of, they know that someone has to cover Ger Cafferty and it's usually going to be Keith Higgins, but if it's not, they've got somebody else who's going to
It's the next guy back, and even on that clip, just Ger again getting the hand in and getting it in, knowing that there's help around him. It's just, you know, I've played inside full forward. Fullbacks love a bit of support back there.
And this one again, we're talking about support. Who do we have? We've Phil McDonough, wing forward. And look at the amount of numbers that we've got around the full back line.
Exactly, and you know, not to harp on about it, but it makes such a difference. If them numbers aren't there, Ger has to play that completely differently, and I think if they continue to get that kind of support back from him, he can be really good for them this year.
I suppose this has been, we're talking of Achilles heel, this has been, as you should know better than anyone, the real Achilles heel for the Mayo full back line. A long ball in, we've got Ger Cafferty one-on-one, but not really, because we've got, again, Keith Higgins making his way back. We've got other men making their way back, and they're not keeping an eye on their men. They're all facing it, and they're all trying to get in or out to protect him.
It's can they get to the point of danger when the ball is dropping, you know? And this is great team play, and this is something that James has definitely worked on since he got the job. And when you're away from it and you come back into it, you get to see these things. But he would have emphasised that, like, this is not easy to do. Don't forget, these Mayo players can very easily take a break here and kind of stand out and say, I've my job done, that's over. You know, maybe hang a guy out to dry, let him deal with it back there. I'm tired. It's into the second half of the game. But no, it's get back, it's help. Again, allows Ger to get that hand in, play with a bit of a risk, and lo and behold, the ever-reliable Keith Higgins is back there to get that sweeping ball, pick it up, and start Mayo on the counter-attack again. So not only are they getting stops, but they're also feeding their energy. The run back has now freed them up to go forward again if they have the legs and get the head up and look to pass. So Mayo really strong, and they'll need loads of that against Dublin this week. You know, if Ger's in there full back, you know, he'll be on Dean Rock. They need to get that support back into that line.
We'll take a seat back, but I suppose the big difference that you would have noticed if you were to pick one thing out of all of that compared to when you were playing against Mayo full back line.
Just the sense of kind of team defence being ever more important. I know it's something they would have always talked about, but I thought it was very evident in that Cavan game when I saw it, is just the amount of times fellas are selfless, leaving their own men and saying, I'm going helping my teammate. And, you know, they have conceded the least in the National League so far in the top division, which speaks volumes for it. But the ultimate test is coming. Big wide open spaces at Croke Park, Dublin. Can they do it there? Which is a great test and something I can't wait to look out for.
Like, Mayo haven't beaten Dublin in 7 years. Like, it's 13 meetings, league and championship. Is there a psychological element to this now as well, Kieran?
There's always, you know, that's a kind of, it's an interesting one. It's always, if you can't get over the line, it's going to be thrown at you. You know, I think Mayo have been right there and probably haven't got the rub of the green a few times against them. So I think this is a game secretly James Horan would have marked earlier on in the calendar and be licking his chops. And I think he would have probably preferred Dublin to come back and maybe get that winning point below in Tralee 2 weeks ago. maybe to have them softened up a bit for this. Now Dublin are kind of coming, kind of going, Dublin, this is a must-win for Dublin now. If they're going to make the league, this is it. It's next on the line stuff, and I expect to see a huge reaction out of Dublin the weekend.
So it's prediction time now.
Yeah, I think home advantage again. I predicted Dublin to beat Kerry when it was kind of a similar situation. Kerry had been going really well, and we didn't really know what they were going to be like against the Dublin test. But Kerry had the home crowd. I think Dublin is going to be a bit of it's going to be a way, reduced atmosphere. You just don't know what Dublin kind of a team, what kind of a team Dublin are going to pick. You don't know who they're going to draw out, who's going to return, and a Cluxon or a Kilkenny or one of these guys coming back could make a massive boost. I think Dublin.
That was a long-winded way of saying in a word.
In a word, I think Dublin by 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, great, short and sweet. Thanks very much.
No bother.
Well, moving on, I suppose we have to talk about Tyrone Monaghan. The rivals. I mean, Tyrone now, they're without a win. They badly need something. But Eamon, I suppose for you, there's an element of frustration that comes with Tyrone and their lack of scoring.
Yeah, so I suppose everyone kind of watches the All-Ireland champions. We had everyone trying to play a big man in full forward when Kieran was first introduced, and Dublin last year everyone was talking about their efficiency, and in the All-Ireland final Tyrone had 16 wides, 13 shots from outside the scoring zone. They only scored one of them, and Dublin had 6 wides, and nearly all of them were in the first half. They completely eradicated in the second half. Tyrone this year in the league seem to have gone the complete opposite, and we've seen that completely in their last game against Roscommon. So in that game against Roscommon, they only kicked. They only had 5. Their outfield players. They only had 5 kicked attempts at the posts. Two scores from the hand or the fist. Niall Morgan got forward and he had a point. So 8 altogether attempts in the whole game from play. And you're not going to have a chance of winning a game realistically with those types of scoring. A really interesting stat. So their average score in the first 3 rounds of the league is 110 from play. And aside from Down in 2016, who got the same as them, that's the lowest score after the first 3 rounds of any team in the last 10 years.
I think that, and that can be a kind of a knock-on effect when you get burnt in an All-Ireland final and you lose. That first meeting back is probably a rehash of the game and what did we do wrong. And I'm sure, as you said, 16 attempts, none of them really getting 1 score. I'm sure leaving that meeting that night would be, okay, we're not going to take any pot shots, we're going to work it into the scoring zones. But when you're playing a defensive style and you're not taking pot shots, you're not confident in kicking it over from long. And they've got some fabulous long-range kickers. Matty Donnelly is a great long-range kicker. You'd love to be getting him in position. Yeah. But it certainly does feel to me like it's a knock-on effect from that All-Ireland final, and something where they're probably gone to the extremes. I remember when we were in with Kerry, we'd say, we want to put in more high ball, and next thing it'd be a barrage of high ball, it'd be too much, and then we'd say, lads, hold off on it, then there'd be none. It's always that kind of over-extreme, I think, with GA teams, and I think that's what we're seeing here out of Tyrone.
And I suppose Monaghan now, they started so well and now they've after getting back-to-back losses. Is there an added pressure now, particularly when there's an Ulster rivalry at stake too? Yeah,
well, this is a relegation battle almost as well. Monaghan against Roscommon and against Galway, they just really lacked a bit of intensity. And again, I just think that Monaghan are really focusing on this style of play to beat Dublin, a possession game, lack of errors. And they forgot that one of the main things that they had was that intensity around the middle third, the Dermot Malones, the Gollagys around the place, and they were coming out and they were winning all that dirty ball. They got completely swamped around the middle third in breaking ball against Roscommon. Against Galway, all the main kickouts that came out at the end of the game, they were beaten for. And it was just like, where is that fight that Monaghan have? And you're watching Tyrone, you're watching Monaghan, it's very flat. It's very flat football.
Yeah, I think they got that win against Dublin, and I'd say we got a lot of pat in the backs after that result, because it was, it was first game of the league, beating the All-Ireland champions, your mighty men. Great men, patting the back, and I'd say got a bit of a land against Roscommon, and then they've Galway coming, and Galway at the moment are playing a really hard style to play against, and that was I watched that game. It was tough stuff to watch.
Well, I suppose speaking of Galway Kerry, because I don't want to run over, and we have to get to that game as well. It's a good test for Kerry now as well. Do you think though that having the week break has nearly killed momentum now? Because obviously they'd have a great confidence in the Dublin win.
I don't think so. I think fellas are playing Sigerson Cup games, and they're still going to be training, get a training session in the weekend, and I think if Kerry lose the weekend, it'll have nothing to do with momentum. It'll have a lot to do with how Galway played. They beat us last year in Croke Park in that Super 8s game, and playing the way that they're playing, which is it's a dour way to play. It's tough to play against. It's effective if you're solid and you're good up front, which they have. When we know Damien Comer's out, but the likes of Shane Walsh, they just have that player that can get a bit of magic and create scores and create panic, freeze, and they're punishing you on the scoreboard and you can't get back into the game, and then you start panicking. They have so many bodies back, you're trying to take these, as we said, these pot shots, they're not working. So it'll be a great test for Kerry the weekend. Really looking forward to see how they handle that, along with what we saw 2 weeks ago from them.
And I suppose lastly, Eamon, we have Cavan Roscommon. You were saying that this is a big opportunity for Roscommon. Yeah,
well, just quickly, these teams have met 8 times since 2012. Cavan have only won once, so they really know each other inside out. For me, if Roscommon win this game, I think Roscommon will be safe. If Tyrone were to lose, Tyrone would need to win the next 3 games. If Monaghan were to win, they still need to win 2 of the 3 next games. If Tyrone were to win, they'd still need to win 2 of the 3 next games, and Monaghan would need to win 2 of the 3 next games. So for me, this for Roscommon is, if they win this game, I think they'll be safe.
And let's talk about Cavan for a second. I mean, Mickey Graham has set them up really well, but they are still at the bottom of the leaderboard. There's a lot of talk about their being well organised. So is it a lack of quality, or what do you see the reason for their lack of success?
It's a tough division. I wouldn't read too much into it. It's they've played it's a tough division, and if you get 1 or 2 shaky results, in 2013 we lost our first 4 games in the league. We weren't a bad team that nearly could have beaten Dublin in that semi-final in 13 after that. So it is a big game from Mullinack. They're gone out of it now. He really focus all his energy into this, and he'll be really you're talking about Roscommon, a must-win game. Cavan will be seeking this as do or die stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks, lads. Time now for another instalment of Teammates. This time it is Monaghan, Ryan Wiley in the hot seat.
Best singer, Carol O'Connell. Fitton Kelly. Vincent Corey. He's the biggest moaner. I could get in trouble here for this. I'm gonna go Carol O'Connell again. Jack McCarron. Derek Malone. Least intelligent. I'm gonna go again for Derek Malone. Most intelligent. Conor Boyle. Carol O'Connell. You got the worst answer. Stupid jokes. I'm going to go for Derek Malone again. It's the worst one-liners ever. Dressing room DJs, probably Kieran Hughes. Some awful tunes.
See, I knew you'd get back here, Seamus, to make sure, because I have a very big question to ask both of you now, given all those questions and Teammates. What was your playlist song, the last song you listened to before you went out of the dressing room?
Yeah, no, I was tearing bits of padding off the seat in front of me in the bus. I had Bruce Springsteen, I had Born to Run, and I was ready to go through the window. Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
That was good stuff.
Brilliant song. Kieran, what about you?
Mr. Brightside, The Killers.
Really?
Yeah.
And
positive vibes.
And would you have played music in the dressing room, or was it only, would a lot of people just done their own thing?
It changes the year with that. So we played music all year last year. We heard Dublin did it. So
and Wexford
Dublin
are doing it now with them.
So we were trying everything.
Yeah, Wexford are doing it now at the moment, and it's not doing them any harm.
Yeah.
What about yourselves?
Well, it was quite enough to be a few fellas here with little bits and small speakers. It wouldn't be a boombox by any means, because fellas would be aware that some guys want to be in a different zone. So I think it's whatever you feel. Once no fella has any serious issues with it.
Some fellas can be put off by it, so it depends on the dressing room dynamic.
I think it's something if you introduce at the start of the year, day one, first game, whether it's a McGrath Cup game, and it becomes the norm. Yeah, you don't want to throw them for a Munster final and lose, and then be sitting on the dressing room going, your music.
But if you're in a dressing room with like 21-year-olds, which I was for the last 2 years, you're getting tunes whether you like it or not.
Yeah, well, that's true too. A lot of people now are going to be listening to Bruce Springsteen and Mr. Brightside now that they have the famous Seamus Hickey and Kieran Donaghy listening to him, so you can be thanked for all that. Well, now we're almost out of time here in Alliance Leagues Reloaded. Just a chance to remind you that we have 3 live games for you on Saturday. It all gets underway in Croke Park in the Little National League as Dublin meet Mayo in a repeat of the 2017 All-Ireland final. Coverage begins at 4:30 on Air Sport 1. Straight after that, on the same channel, Jim Gavin and James Horan square off as Dublin host Mayo, throw in at 7 p.m. While on Air Sport 2, Tyrone host Monaghan and Omagh, and coverage gets underway at 6:50. My thanks to Kieran Donaghy, Seamus Hickey and Eamon Donoghue for their insights. Thank you, for watching. We'll see you again next week at the usual time.
Supporting all 32 counties, Allianz.